Around the world, there are millions, perhaps billions of people who celebrate Christmas without knowing who Jesus was or why he was born. His birth changed the course of human history, even for those who don't believe in him. His birth changed the future of mankind, even for those who have never heard his name. During the Christmas season, many will simply have a quick acknowledgement of Jesus. Others might say the phrase, "Jesus is the reason for the season," but they do so without really knowing why is it that he came to earth in the first place. Now, with our hindsight, we know Jesus was born, he lived 33 years, and he died in the spring during Passover. But why was he born in the first place? Why was it his destiny to enter this sin-filled, sick, and hurting world at all? Often during the Christmas season, the focus is on the book of Luke, but in this episode, I want to share a few lines with you from the book of Hebrews. In Hebrews 10, 5-7, we read, "This is why, when Christ came into the world, he said to God, 'You did not want animal sacrifices or sin offerings, but you have given me a body to offer. You were not pleased with burnt offerings or other offerings for sin. Then I said, Look, I have come to do your will, O God, as it's written about me in the Scriptures.'" On that first Christmas Eve, the earth was unaware of what was about to happen, oblivious to what was coming. But heaven wasn't. The angels were waiting in anticipation, for they could see what was happening. Christ knew his body would be given and that he would become the final sacrifice. There are lots of secondary reasons why Jesus was born. He came to teach, he came to heal, he came to show love, he came to set an example. But as great as those are, they're all secondary reasons. There's only one primary reason that Jesus was born, and it's a sobering one. Jesus was born to die. The only reason that Bethlehem happened was so that the cross could happen. He was born a baby so that he could die a man. That tiny baby, swaddled in cloth, was born to die 33 years later. From the Old Testament to the New, it's written that the ultimate penalty for sin is death. Because of the justice of God, sin is punished by death. And if I'm the one who's going to bear my own punishment when I die, I will die fully, physically, spiritually, eternally, because I can't live a sinless life. But because of God's love for you, he created an alternative. He showed his love for you by sending Jesus. He sent his own son as a substitute to die and accept your punishment so that you may live with him in heaven. In Hebrews 2, the first part of verse 9, we see that Jesus was temporarily given a position lower than the angels because of how he suffered death for us. This tells us that when Jesus died, his death wasn't an easy and gentle passing from this world. Rather, it was agony and suffering on the cross. He suffered in his death. And only Jesus was capable of doing this on our behalf. An angel couldn't do it. Only a man could. Only Jesus could be our substitute. The second half of verse 9-10, it reads, "Yes, by God's grace, Jesus tasted death for everyone. God, for whom and through whom everything was made, chose to bring many children into glory. And it was only right that he should make Jesus, through his suffering, a perfect leader, fit to bring them into their salvation." Jesus didn't come because you or I asked him to, or because we deserved him. Rather, it was by God's grace and God's love. God designed it this way. And through the suffering and death of Jesus, he brings us into salvation. We didn't earn salvation. God's grace provides it. We didn't deserve it. God freely gave it. God looked at sinful mankind, saw the inevitable death that man would pay, and through his overwhelming love for you, he designed an alternative. In Hebrews 10, verse 10, we read, "For God's will was for us to be made holy by the sacrifice of the body of Jesus Christ once for all time." You've been made holy by the sacrifice of Jesus. You have been redeemed by the sacrifice of Jesus. You've been made holy when you accept Jesus as your Savior, and that holiness cannot be taken away. And Jesus knew this so much that he gave you a new name. In Hebrews 2, verse 11, it says, "So now Jesus and the ones he makes holy have the same Father. That's why Jesus is not ashamed to call them his brothers and sisters." To Jesus, in other words, you are now his brother or his sister. This is why Jesus was born, and it was God's loving plan for you. So during this Christmas season, Make sure that you take some time and appreciate just what an amazing gift Jesus truly is. Now, next week, I'm going to have a longer episode for you. It's still just me, and it's going to be quite a bit more intense. It's going to be about violence and chaos and war. And yes, it's the Christmas episode for the year. I really think you'll like it, and I hope that you share it with your friends and your family when you get a chance to listen to it. So that's next week. Make sure you check that out. All right, enjoy the next show.